And we're live. Hi everyone, it's Friday, and around here we call it Flirty Friday. I'm Susanna, the date maven, and thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Flirty Friday, where I am happy to introduce you to Kate Duxler.
Hi.
We are here in my cozy little office, and I'm getting this heavenly glow from the side. Makes me look more angelic than I really am. I'm okay with that. I can use all the angel glow I can get. So let me give you a little background. I'm a dating coach and matchmaker. I work with singles across North America. Kate recently relocated to Wichita, Kansas, which is where I live and am based out of. And so some people who knew her and also knew me said, you two have to meet.
Friend blind date.
It was a friend blind date, which is the best kind,
Yeah.
I think, and I love that. And that's something I often talk about a lot as a social coach, is how to kind of make those digital introductions that lead to real life introductions. And you never really know, if it's going to be business, friendship, maybe romance. You don't always know what the end game is going to be, but just sort of how to put yourself out there and do that as a real gift to people.
And
because
that's how we got connected, is because someone you had coached to do that
it worked,
actually thought of us.
Did it, yes.
And I think that's a really cool moment. But you're right, it's like networking is kind of a frame of mind, right?
It is.
And that you can't just go out there and say, I want to meet the love of my life, and only that. It's like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to put enough irons in the fire, and get myself out and see and be seen enough that the magic can happen any of these ways.
I could not have said it better. So let me give you a little bit of background about Kate, and I think you'll be seeing a lot more of her around town. But Kate is a mindfulness instructor, so that was something we connected over. And she's also an entrepreneur and founder of the Old Soul Institute, which I love that name. And I want to ask you in a minute about the story, how you came up with that name.
Oh yeah.
She uses she helps professionals with tools and practices that will make them more effective and more successful. I don't know anyone who can't use a little bit more of that, a little more efficiency, maybe a little more, I don't know if it's push. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that. She helps people with their life purpose and to find more meaning and fulfillment in their work. And she runs programs for entrepreneurs with a spiritual side, which this is what mega spoke to me. There's a creativity to entrepreneurship, and my sort of spiritual mindset is that all creativity is sort of part of that divine energy, divine flow. So we'll let you steer me where you want to go on that. But teaching these mindfulness skills and soft skills for the workplace. And if you've watched this show before, I have preached soft skills. And so I think we're going to try to corral ourselves into maybe a 15 or 20 minute conversation today, though I have a feeling it could easily go much longer.
A spin-off series.
We can do a spin-off. Maybe this is just the first of a series. So if you do have, hi Sabrina, appreciate that. If you are watching and you want to throw out a question or a comment, or even just introduce yourself to Kate or myself, please feel free to do that. We love it when you interact with us. One of the things that Kate and I definitely committed to talking about too is online dating, offline dating, and some of the anxiety that can exist around that, and then how to handle that stress with some mindfulness tools and techniques. So I have to put that out there so we don't forget. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how to use mindfulness in various settings, whether it's a dating situation or maybe a job hunt situation, interview situation. I'm giving a big talk tomorrow that I might be a teeny bit nervous about. It's a TEDx talk, and so maybe if you can just amp me up with some mindfulness strategies for tomorrow morning, I will be indebted. All right?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive in. So tell me a little bit about Old Soul Institute. I know what that phrase means to me. Sometimes you meet someone who's 5, but it feels like they're 500. How did you come up with the name Old Soul Institute?
That is such a great question. I've never been asked that question, and it was anyone who's tried to name a business of any type, the creative process can be, by the time the public sees it, we kind of take for granted all the formulation that sometimes can take years that happens in the background. And so I very much went through that process. And so one of my mentors is named Ansley McLeod, and he is a spiritual teacher, and he talks a lot literally about kind of the I don't know if this is the best word, but the science of aging souls, so young souls versus old souls. And I've studied his work so much that that term just came to have a lot of meaning for me. And again, it's understood enough even if one doesn't know how to define it specifically, the meaning is kind of inherent in it in everyday language, and so it was very conducive. So actually the first way that I started using it is the name of my program that I do for entrepreneurs who want to develop a business around their purpose. So I offer this one-on-one program, and it's all online, so we can do it over the phone, and so I can work with people from anywhere, but I call it Old Soul CEO.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Okay, we have to drop that into the comments under this video. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so more information is on my website about that, but again, to design a business around your purpose, like that innate spiritual meaning. And it doesn't have to be something like so explicitly spiritual. It's just something really with meaning, like something you feel you came here to do, and all the purpose that can be derived out of that. Well, I started working on that, and so that Old Soul CEO is the first kind of aspect of my work, but then I really wanted to broaden it to make sure that I could bring in all the different things that I wanted to work on, because as you've just said, all these things relate. Your dating life relates to your work life, relates to your job function, and your personal fulfillment and your family life. It's all related, so we can't really focus on one, or we can, but then we limit ourselves, because you can learn something today talking about dating that you can apply tomorrow for a big presentation. So I wanted to broaden it, and so that's where I said, you know what, let's just say Old Soul Institute. We're going to fit it all in: relationships, personal life, workplace effectiveness, those soft skills that we were referring to. So Old Soul Institute was born, and I'm founding it with my father, who is a local professor here in the Wichita area. And yeah, so you can check it out on oldsoulinstitute.com.
Thinking back to when I founded my firm, The Date Maven, I remember thinking through some of the motives that I had, like, why do I want to do this? Because I knew from other people in my life that entrepreneurship wasn't, easy. So I asked myself the question of what's the burn here? Like, what's the drive? And I knew that there was a feeling of, this is what I have to contribute to the world. This is what I have to contribute to humanity. This is my special gift to give. And then there was also a sense of significance, like, this is how I'm going to make my mark. This is how I'm going to make my impact. And I'm sure there are different things driving different people, and sometimes more than one. And so it sounds like that might be something that you work through with them to sort of understand, particularly when things get rough and you were thinking about, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, and this is challenging, and just getting back to that seed of your why. People talk about it now as like, what's your why, right? Okay. So I know that you work typically with professional individuals. Is there sort of an ideal type of client who finds you, or you find them?
Well, I think you're gonna this is going to click when I say it, but anyone who identifies as an old soul, right?
Okay.
That's really the person who's looking for that inherent, deeper meaning and purpose. And what you were just saying, it's like, I kind of, what I've come to find is, people, before they're ready for that big idea, like whatever it is that is buried in them. And my hypothesis is that most people already know.
Yeah.
They know what they really want to do. I mean, it is in them. They know they could. Before I made any of this, the day I walked out of my old companies, it matches exactly what I want to do, what I'm doing now.
Huh.
I knew it was buried in fear and all the different manifestations of fear. And so it was really more about excavating the purpose that I knew deep down that was inside of me, more than trying to go find it.
Oh, okay.
And so, but so someone might ask, okay, well, that's great, but like from where I am right now in my seat, I'm working in an office, and it certainly doesn't feel that purposeful, and I'm banging my head against the wall every day, and it's a long cry away from this dream, heart-centered empire that I have. So how do you close that gap, right? And that's really the sweet spot. Like, that's where people can start working right away to connect to their purpose, because it's an inside game.
Okay.
So that's where it loops back to mindfulness, because as you start, wherever you are, whatever job you're in now, if you start paying attention to who you are, how you show up, like the state of consciousness that you have in your role, you will transform things on the outside, but you have to start on the inside. So that's really the process, regardless of where you are in the external manifestation of whatever business you might be dreaming of.
Yeah. So this is kind of a higher level conversation, right? I mean, this is like, we're talking about self-actualization here, essentially. You didn't use that term, but I'm going to use that term. And there's a parallel to everything you're saying that is in the dating field. It starts with that inside job. You don't have to go looking out and about, or it starts here first. Now, so, okay, given that this is a higher level conversation, what about if someone just says, okay, I've done this, I've laid this foundation, I know who I am, I know what that purpose is, I just kind of need some tactics, some strategies for how I can be more efficient and effective with my time from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Or if you're an entrepreneur, you're working longer hours than that, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., whatever. Do you have some of that kind of stuff too to offer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's explore that. So we're talking about, this, it's kind of a spectrum, right? I mean, you're either kind of really bored and stagnant and like, what's this life about? Oh my gosh, I can't find meaning if it hit me in the face, all the way to, frantic busyness where it's like, I can't find a second to just connect to who I am. And that's really, that phrase is where I want to direct people. Is there has to be a sense of space. And that, we hear a lot about it, and it kind of is like, oh, how do you do that? Or I really don't want to. But this concept of meditation is really critical in this modern world. I mean, we're really talking about old souls, a certain kind of individual. And in this crazy, hectic world, it's inescapable. We have to create some space so we can calm everything down and connect to this inner space. And there's so much wisdom and power and insight and fulfillment available there. But if we're always going a million miles an hour, and the world will do everything it can, right, to keep us from finding that. And so that's absolutely the first place to start, is spending 5 minutes with yourself quietly.
And is that tough for some people? Because I know a lot of people who, if they have even 5 seconds that they're not entertained or engaged in something, they have to grab like a phone and play Candy Crush, or they have to find something to sort of fill that void. And I think it can be uncomfortable for people to sort of sit in the void for a moment or two. So tell me how you kind of work through that with the people that you work with.
Well, that is so relatable. I mean, really the concept is everyone starts at that point in this, for the most part, unless you were born, in a cabin up in the wilderness with, enlightened parents or something, right? I mean, we're really all having to start from this space of like, a really active mind that we're identified with, that we don't seem to have gaps in the thinking. And so just starting from where you are, just being extra patient with yourself. All, what you're looking for are just little gaps in the thinking, and they'll get bigger and bigger, and you'll get better and better. But that's the whole point of meditation, is that we're cultivating that, so it's available when we need it.
Yes. So I guess I would be a walking testimonial or billboard for you for the power of meditation. The caveat, and I share it a lot with my clients, I recommend meditation as a practice to them, whether they are stressed about their personal life or their professional life or what have you, because I do think that it helps them to navigate sort of the the peaks and the valleys of dating and relationships, and not to be so reactive to things. People get really reactive to, so-and-so said this to me online, or so-and-so said this in a date, or should I wear this outfit, or like they just get really reactive to the minutia. And that's not really the place I want them to approach from, because it's not empowering. It's not their most resourceful place, and it's not the place where they can be the most themselves. So learning how to kind of neutralize that reactivity, in my experience, has started with mindfulness and meditation. And it's something I started doing every night, and then eventually I added every morning, or most mornings as well. And the kind of amazing thing, it's not like a switch was flipped, or a light turned on, or like a button was it was just sort of like one day a really, really, really stressful thing happened, and I went, okay, cool. And I was just, it's not that it didn't aggravate me, but it was just a much, it wasn't a big like pot boiling over kind of a thing. It was just sort of like, well, this really stinks, and I'm just gonna have to chill with this for a moment and think about how I want to react right now. Breathing seems like a pretty good step to take, so I'm just going to keep breathing. And I was able to just really sort of roll with that tide much more successfully, and without getting myself wrapped around the chain, as we say in coaching. So, success story. Not that you arrive, like it's always a work in progress. Anna Duxler is loving this video. That must be one of your people.
Oh, yeah, that's my sister.
Awesome. All right. So, yeah, so do you have other clients who've maybe had, and like I said, it was just kind of one day I went, oh, meditation is working for me. Good to know. Finally. But I was thankful for it. Do you ever hear back from people you've worked with in weeks or months or years past, and they finally say, hey, Kate, I just wanted to let you know I had this breakthrough, or this discovery, or this thing finally worked. Thanks for that. Way back when.
Absolutely. That's the whole beauty of this path, and that relates to what we were saying in the beginning. When you want to find your purpose, this is it. Our purpose is self-awareness. Our purpose is to develop and improve ourselves. And when you identify that as your primary purpose, then everything in your life has meaning. And that's really what we're all looking for. And we slowly have insights, and we shift a little more, and we shift a little more, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, I have a tool for that. Oh, this happened last time, and this worked for me. And the things that used to be very challenging, all of a sudden become easy. And then you're working on some more advanced things. And then all of a sudden, you're really humming along. You're really developing yourself as a more advanced consciousness. And that's where you'll have a greater capacity to handle stresses in life, and also bigger goals. You'll be more prepared for, remember when we were saying, oh, that business idea feels like such a long distance away. You're working your way there through self-improvement. And so, yes, meditation is kind of where it all synthesizes. But those little insights that people have, absolutely. And then they compound and they compound and they compound. So however you can get them, more power to you. But there needs to be a little space so that it can...
So that the seed can settle into the soil. There's a comment here from Sabrina who says, I know many humans who are really struggling with taking time to shut out the world, and I want to express something to you, and then hear if this happens with you as well. So when I'm working with a client, we have usually a weekly phone call that we have scheduled. We've met in person at the beginning, and then we're kind of checking in every week by phone, and we're checking to say, did you kind of do your life work, or where are your thoughts at now, or have you done your social strategies, and how can I help boost those? Sometimes it's hard for them to even make space for that 30-minute phone call, even though it's in their best interest, and they've invested in a dating coach, and they've said that they're going to do the readings and watch the videos and go to the places and meet the people. And I'll say, this phone call, out of respect for you and really maximizing the value that I know is there for you, let's not do it at work. Don't be at work when you're taking this call. Shut off the TV or the radio, or shut the kids out, or whatever. Just really create focus and take some notes, and take them by hand, because that's a different kind of way of remembering the information. And it's hard for people even to take that 30 minutes every week with me, and I know that I'm not taking that personally, but I have some things that I know will be more powerful for them, and more impactful faster for them if they can kind of carve that out, as opposed to, I'll do dating when I have time, or I'll do dating when I just get really, 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 really tired of being lonely, or whatever the frustrating feeling is. So I think probably we can't say it too many times, the importance of making time for the stillness, for the silence, the solitude, for yourself.
Yeah, let me offer, because those are really common issues, and so I do want to offer some solutions to that. There's this thing that happens with meditation that I know very well, and I think it's extremely relatable, and it happens with exercise and other things that we should do. Our inner child gets a little cranky at that concept, like, don't tell me what to do. Because, by the way, that is a characteristic of an old soul. It's this desire to have autonomy and to be your own decision maker. And so when we're getting all these messages from people, you really need to meditate, and you're like, you know what, screw off.
Yeah.
There becomes this thing where it's like, I don't want to do it because I'm supposed to.
Right.
And so that's where we just need to kind of shift the paradigm and be, gentle and compassionate with ourselves, like we would a child. That's why I use the word inner child. And so, but I think the key reminder here, there's a few things, but the key reminder is that we actually are in choice. And we get to decide what happens those 16 hours a day, far more than we will acknowledge. And there is a lot of scapegoating going on that says, oh, I can't because I have all these things, as if the world is forcing you to do all these things. And it's really a case of taking a hard look at your life and recognizing you're in control of what you do and say yes to and say no to, and quit acting like you don't have the power to make some choices in your day that are more effective. Because we're just talking, when I was first starting on this, I was a busy executive. I owned and operated 3 very busy companies, and I had very little time. But the length of free time to explore this, but in my soul, it was like I was dying for some space and some stillness, and it was getting louder. And that's the other motivating thing, is like the suffering. Like, at some point, if you've had enough suffering, like your experience, what other example could be more powerful than that? Something that at one time would normally cause you suffering, when you do these practices, has less hold on you. Oh my goodness, if that doesn't motivate you, like, how much more suffering do you want? Because you'll get it.
You'll get it.
And so at some point, we just decide, that voice inside gets loud enough, and we say, okay, let's make some time. And we just start in the smallest bits. But you're making that decision for yourself, and not because anyone outside you told you to. And that's the only orientation that I've found that works in my relationship to my spiritual practices.
Beautifully said. Now, I want to talk a little bit about confidence and mindfulness, but we do have a comment here from Michael Duxler saying, I learned something profound each and every time I listen to you.
Oh.
Loving.
We're mutual biggest fans of each other.
Yes. You brought your peeps today.
Apparently, yeah.
So let's talk about tips for mindfulness for a more successful dating life. And will you share your tips and then say a little bit about why? I love that you included 3, because 3 is memorable and actionable. So what are your 3 tips?
There's so many. street and I say, no, I think I remember. Okay, so one is just like, let's draw the parallel right away between your talk tomorrow and dating. And I also have done lots of sales training, so I do sales coaching, so a sales context. This tip applies very well for all of them, and that is you do not go in cold. You practice energetically before the situation, so it is readily available, that the state of consciousness that you want to go forth with. And so that's why my first tip is, set an intention. So are you spending just a couple minutes before, letting yourself get still and saying, what is my frame of mind? What, is it just as simple as I'd like to have an authentic connection with this person? That will work wonders, whether it's a sales call that you're going into, like what is my objective or whatever, because this spinning world that we're talking about, that's so crazy and busy and wants our attention so bad, if we come directly out of that world and land ourselves in that seat across from your date at happy hour, whew, good luck.
Right.
So, just taking 2 minutes, that's it, will be leagues of improvement over not.
Yeah, even if it's just sort of the stoplights on your drive there, that's better than nothing. So the idea of setting an intention, I do that every day. I do that personally. I do it professionally. And I would tell people, keep it simple. Like, don't think about it doesn't have to be a whole page long of, I intend that this date will lead to blah, 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 blah. It might just be, I intend to have fun. I intend to laugh. I intend to
be relaxed.
Learn something new. I intend to practice being more confident. And that's something that a lot of the people I work with, even if the date is a bust, you had an opportunity to practice confidence, to show up more confident. If you show up with, my intention is to meet the husband and, person I'm going to spend my life with and plant a garden with and paint the house with and have grandchildren with, that's a lot. And probably the energy of that is going to be communicated, and then the person you're having that meet with could perhaps be a little bit overwhelmed. But you might instead set an intention of, my big picture is I want to get married and have a family. And although I don't know what's going to happen with this person I'm about to meet, may it bring me one step closer. May it bring me one step closer to that goal, that dream, that vision, that reality. It may not be with them. It might be with someone they know. It might be someone they connect you to. Or it might be something they say that you're like, oh, I didn't know about that club or that hiking group or that whatever that they throw out there. And then you go, and then that's where you meet the one. So keep your intentions pretty clean and pretty simple. And then you have another tip here about being yourself.
This one, okay, for the record, I have probably been on 50 first dates. I've been divorced for over 3 years. And, so I say this, and what you just said, I mean, that was like...
Was that landing?
So relatable. Because you're absolutely right. If you go in with that, like, is this the man that I'm going to marry and have a garden with? That will be felt.
Yeah.
And it's...
Right, guys?
It does
right?
not work.
Right? Okay.
So that was so profound and relatable. And that really reminds us that, these are universal things. You are not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so great about technology and stuff is we really get to feel that, like, oh my gosh, that's me too. It's like, yeah, we're all connected. Let's remember that. Let's break down those barriers. So practice being yourself. This one, in my 50 first dates, and at some point I got to go up to 60 first dates because I've still been dating. But this has been one of the most interesting practices, is this concept of being myself. Because I would notice that with my family and my best friends, I was just like myself. I wouldn't even try or nothing. But then when I'm with these dates, it was like, who's that girl? It was just this very odd thing where I just didn't know how to be myself. And so I had to really work on that, like you were saying, may this bring me one step closer. Like, I didn't get there overnight, but I used the self-awareness that I had committed to just notice something was off and reflect on it until and the best way I can describe it, until I became more and more and more myself. And I think the word that keeps coming up is posturing. It's to avoid, any sort of like, oh, I've got to portray this certain thing, because that'll just, hold you up and block authentic connection. And that's really what we're craving. Because a successful date, of all the dates that I've had, the successful ones are authentic connections.
Yes. Yeah.
And that feels just as rewarding as, this dream of meeting your dream guy,
Yeah, if two people show up on a date both bringing their false selves, then what, like, hope or prospect do you have for any kind of ongoing connection? One of the things that I preach hardcore, my clients are probably almost tired of hearing me say, is who are you and what do you want? If you don't know the answer to those questions, let's back the wagon up. And before you get out there and start dating, if you don't know that, then you're just all comers, may as well kind of flow in.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, that's a Deepak Chopra for you. Yeah.
Your tips in all these years, you have summarized so clearly just now the very things it took me years to learn.
Yeah.
Those are
me too.
Really,
me too.
really helpful.
So showing up as yourself, but sometimes I'll tell a client, hey, there's this thing about you that's really cool. Are you making sure that like that sort of comes forward in the exchange, whether it's maybe digital or in real life? And they'll say, well, no, and well, go ahead and cast a spotlight on that. And so I'll use that language. I'm not ever saying be someone or something you're not, but I will say take XYZ qualities or attributes about yourself and make sure you put the spotlight on those, because that's going to really communicate what you're about. That's going to communicate your brand in the dating market. That's going to make you memorable, and that's what we want. I see thank you so much, Anna, for your commentary. We're getting some good props here. Good to know. What about this last one about judgment? The last tip.
Okay, this last tip, limit judgment and analysis. This, for any daters out there, I think is a relatable one. Also, and this works two ways, right? This is this idea of going into a date and the whole time you're just in your head. What do I think about what they're wearing? What do I think about what I just said? What does he think about what I just said? You're incapable of being present when you're in this orientation of judgment, and it's really seductive to do because we feel really vulnerable, right? And so we kind of default into this fear-based mode, and it's totally understandable. So it's like we want to be compassionate with ourselves, but we also want to notice, because it's really going to block things. And so the point you're making about knowing what you want in advance is what allows you to not sit there and analyze everything as you're going in it, because it's pretty clear, what you want. It in your own vibration and in your energy, and so that allows you to just chill out and get to know people and ask questions. And my final, kind of bullet point with that one, and this is something that my dad and I talk about a lot as being so helpful in relationships, is just this concept of giving the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, I love it. Amen to that.
In this age when we're online dating and like you read the profile, the pictures, the little words, this initial awkward, it's just rife with opportunities to be like, what's wrong with this idiot?
It is rife with pitfalls that people can fall into, either trying to read too much into something, misinterpreting something. There's not the tone or the body language or any of the other nonverbals that go along with a verbal exchange and how to interpret it. So people they misfire all the time.
Yeah, and if we're cutting people off and walking in with this, I don't know, he did this, I didn't like the way he said that, it's online dating is hard enough, and there's a lot of fatigue for a lot of us, and you're not alone, I'm not alone. There's a collective kind of energy around this online dating culture, and so I'm fatigued, he's fatigued, and so we're all kind of like, ugh. So I think that's the biggest thing that I have that has allowed me to connect more, is just not to, jump to conclusions based on some trivial thing, and And I think a good litmus test for that is, how would you want to be perceived with your communications? Because there have been certainly been moments where I kind of, am in the middle of something, but I'll shoot back a message. It wasn't the most thoughtful, grounded thing, and it could be misinterpreted, but that wasn't my intention. And if he misinterprets it and goes off on this whole story about what it means, then I'm really kind of out of luck, right? And it doesn't set anyone up for success. So I just, it's such an important concept. And it's not just in dating. I think this is in all key relationships. It's like, the more often we can give someone the benefit of the doubt, then you won't have to rely on a fear-based analysis, and you'll be able to turn more into discernment. So don't worry, you're not going to suddenly just get taken advantage of and miss all these red flags and stuff. That's not it. But we're taking it out of that charged judgment and getting it to a more grounded, neutral concept of discernment, which doesn't have as much, drama in it.
Yeah, I love your language with that, your word choice there, discernment. That you've nailed it on that, absolutely. Well, we could talk ad infinitum about that. You're actually kind of previewing a little bit of what I'll be talking about tomorrow in my TEDx talk at Friends University. One of my bullet points is about being compassionate and approaching with mercy. So I think, if you want people to sort of have a compassionate way of dealing with you, that's, you can be the one to start that loop. Let me just say a word about that, because I think there might be some people who are curious. So Friends University is hosting a TEDx conference in the morning from 8 to noon. About a week ago, word went out that all the spots were claimed. And then there was another communication that went out earlier this week saying, well, a few people have backed out, so now there are some seats available. I haven't really been able to keep track day to day of the status of that. So if you are wanting to attend and you're watching this, I would go ahead and maybe get on to their Facebook page for the event. They have their own TEDx Talk Facebook page. And ask if seats are available, or ask what you can do to get on a wait list, or ask if they are going to Facebook Live broadcast it or post it to a YouTube channel later. I know that it will be recorded, and so there should be an opportunity for people to get to watch that, if not live, then after the fact. Kate, I want to say thank you so much for being here today, and I'm hoping that we can have lunch sometime and kind of pick up where we left off, and keep riffing on these ideas. And you have actually something, I want to let people know how they can stay in touch with you. So what would be, if what you have said has spoken to people who are watching and they kind of want to know how to follow you and maybe even have like an exploratory conversation with you, what should they do?
Easy. Go to my website, kateduxler.com. And there will be a link where you can sign up for a free call with me for anybody who's interested in just having any level of discussion, whether it's about a collaboration or client work together. And so that'll be right on there. I also do a first-time client offer called Fall in Love with Your Work. And this is where we work together on on finding your purpose, connecting to your purpose, and really do a very heartfelt strategy around that, so you can really fall in love with your work again. Whether it's a job you want to stay in for the long term or something you're very much wanting to get out of, this session that I offer will help you facilitate that. So it's only $99. It's a first-time client offer, and you can email me. There's a banner right on my website for that.
That is a great value, so thank you for that. Is there a time limit on that? Like, should they reach out this weekend or within a week? Or?
No, this is something that I offer indefinitely for first-time clients.
All right, very good. And of course, if you would like to fall in love with your work, if you want to fall in love with someone, a life partner of some kind, then I would be the person to reach out to for that. And you can reach me at Susanna@thedatemaven.com. You can also message me through social media. And I have a little bit of an announcement to make if Chrissy gives me the green light to make it. All right, so I didn't even tell you I was going to drop this today, but I've launched a new brand. So for a little while, people have been telling me, oh, you're so much more than the date maven. Yeah, you're good at connecting people for romance or whatnot, but there's so much more you have to offer. And then people started kind of coming to me asking for things that were like one-off, like training their sales staff and how to be maybe a little bit more polished and sophisticated, or training their management team in how to do podcast interviews or panel presentations or whatever. So anything kind of social or communications related or networking related, relationship building related that's maybe outside of the romantic sphere, those requests started. It took a while for me to kind of be responsive to like the knock at the door, I guess, that the universe has been. Chrissy's nodding her head like, yes, we have waited for, like, so many people were saying this to me, and I'm like, I have invested so much in the date. So I was kind of being resistant and stubborn, and that's how I am. That's how I'm wired. But I finally said yes to that. And so SusannaMatthews.com is the new website that has launched as of today. And you will see information on there about what I do as a brand ambassador and micro-influencer. If you have a product or a service and you want to make it more visible to more people and be more vocal about what it is that you do, I have a platform and I have an audience and I have a lot of energy and enthusiasm for sharing those worthwhile messages. So there's information on that website about that, as well as what I do as a keynote speaker and presenter and MC and that kind of thing. And we talked about my old background on radio, because that's something that you have some background in. And then social coaching as well, because I realized that there are a lot of people around the age of like my oldest child and producer Chrissy's oldest children who may not necessarily be looking for the love of their lives. They're in their early 20s, mid-20s, but they are looking for widening their friend group, or just maybe a few dates to get under their belt so that they have the confidence and the experience with that sort of thing. And so social coaching is a little bit of a better fit than, say, date coaching or matchmaking. So anyway, that was a very long explanation. I will have also some additional information in my blog feed about it, and if you're not yet subscribed to and getting that, www.thedatemaven.com will take you there. I am still very much in the early stages of considering how I will juggle two brands, and I'm sure I will make mistakes. Let's just put that out there. I am sure there will be times when I go, I should have done that differently, but I just ask that everyone will be patient with me and compassionate and kind and hopefully supportive. Both brands are national, not just local, so it may take me a while to just kind of, figure out how to do my little dog paddle with being in new waters. But anyway, I just wanted to share that happy news with you. Is there anything else that you want to add, Kate, before we sign off?
Thanks for providing this platform and inviting me today.
All right, you are very welcome. Thank you for watching. This has been another episode of Flirty Friday with Susanna the Date Maven and Kate Duxler. Have a wonderful weekend. Mwah.